Young and the Restless next week. Victor and Phyllis play dirty and Mariah confesses. As this week ended, you're going to see Victor on the warpath after Claire tells him she and Kyle Abbott, Michael Mealer, are moving in together. Victor does not respect Claire's right to choose who she loves, nor will he listen to Nikki Newman, Melody Thomas Scott, when she cautions him on this matter. When Victor found out that Claire and Kyle were planning to buy Adam Newman, Mark Grossman's apartment to live in, he really lost it. Victor decided that Kyle is intentionally trying to pull Claire away from her family, and he's not going to allow it. This is turning into a real Romeo and Juliet story, which we had been promised in Young and the Restless spoilers, and it's happening. Claire was kind of stunned by the end of this week when Nikki tried to get her to back down instead of getting Victor to back down, because Claire thought Nikki was on the same page as her. But first, Nikki was questioning if Claire is rushing into this and if somehow she's being pressured to move in with Kyle. But Claire knows her own mind. However, Nikki was trying to suggest that they need to appease Victor right now because he won't handle it well right now. But then Nikki also admitted that Victor will never accept Claire being with Kyle no matter how much time he's given. So, right now doesn't matter. Young and the Restless spoilers. Victor's control tactics. The bottom line, Victor wants what Victor wants. And he's going to burn everything down if it doesn't go his way. And Claire is quite upset by all this because she doesn't want to lose Kyle, whom she loves, or Victor, whom she cares about, or her family ties. But really, the only one writing Claire about this is Victor. The rest of the family does not care that she is dating Kyle. They either don't care or they're supportive. Those are, and then there's just Victor as the outlier playing master of the universe trying to control everything. After Claire accused Victor, Eric Braeden, of trying to make her choose a side, he's telling Claire she doesn't understand how much the Abbotts and Newmans loathe each other. But that's not accurate. It's pretty much just Victor loathing Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, and his son. Now, I will say that Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, loathes Victor because he has done a lot of terrible things to him, most recently stealing Chancellor. But otherwise, the rest of the Abbotts would just like Victor to chill out and leave them be. They don't want to do this grudge match thing. But in the end, this is all just Victor waging a war that nobody but him wants. Young and the Restless spoilers. Victor targets Claire and Kyle. So even though Claire made clear she loves Kyle and won't give him up, Victor is intent on blowing them up. So he went over to Jabot on Friday, said Kyle can't buy Adam apartment, threatened him, he'd better stay away from Claire. And Victor was all this smack talk about how Kyle is going to destroy Claire. Just all this nastiness. And then Victor marched over and told Adam he is not allowed to sell his apartment to Claire and Kyle. But Adam's like, it's just money. Who cares? Claire and Kyle will just buy another apartment if they don't buy mine. So we'll see if he defies his father or not. But he's just kind of like, this is stupid. And this sets the stage next week for Victor to get into some other dirty dealings while plotting against Claire and her guy. Y&R. Claire's surprising plan to win over Victor. Now Kyle feels bad when Claire tells him how awfully things went with her grandpa Victor. And then Kyle's worrying that Claire will walk away from him because Victor will never approve. But Claire vows to stick with Kyle and face Victor together. So next week, Claire tells Nikki and Victoria Newman, Amelia Heinley, that they have to change Victor's mind about Kyle, Michael Mealer. And Claire got a big idea. She tells Nikki and Victoria that she wants to throw a party. Now, I don't know how a party is going to make Victor accept Kyle Abbott as her guy, but we'll see. Maybe Claire's plan is something fantastic. Have Kyle jump out of the cake or something, right? Because this should be for Nikki's birthday party. Given that party planner Pietro is coming soon, he's going to be played by Queer Eye's Jai Rodriguez. It looks like Claire may be working with Victor to help plan a big do for her grandma Nikki. And Claire somehow thinks that throwing this massive party is going to warm up Victor. It will not. He is out of control. He needs a kick in the pants from karma. I know. So Claire taking steps next week to convince Victor to come around to her way of thinking. But he's not even on that. He's getting ready to make big war against the Abbotts. Victor Newman plots with Phyllis Summers on Y&R. And that is part of why Victor meets with Phyllis Summers, Michelle Stafford, next week. Last time we saw her, Phyllis was furious that Billy fired her and replaced her with Sally Spectra, Courtney Hope, at Abbott.com. And Phyllis threatened Billy, saying he'd regret doing this to her, when realistically she was spiraling and gave him no choice. So next week, Phyllis goes and she's offering information to Victor. But Phyllis wants something in return for what she'll tell Victor. I'm just wondering how much Phyllis knows about Billy's plans for Abbotcom and if she has other info on the other Abbotts, which she really shouldn't at this point, but definitely about Billy's plans. And in our last Prediction Edition video, I talked about Phyllis teaming up with Victor to destroy Billy. And now it looks like if Victor makes it worth her while, that Phyllis will do just that. Since Billy fired her, Phyllis may decide to help Victor torpedo Billy Boy's new business just out of pure spite because Phyllis is unhinged. Y&R spoilers. Mariah's shocking confession to Tessa. Also, next week, Tessa Porter, Kate Fairbanks, and Mariah, Cameron Grimes, are hanging out together in the park. They're both crying. Tessa somehow thinks she did something wrong, and she is begging Mariah to forgive her. And Tessa is going to offer to try therapy or family counseling if Mariah feels like she can't barely risen over Genoa City. But the tension was already thick in the air. At Newman Enterprises, Victor Newman stood before the panoramic windows of his office, hands clasped behind his back and a storm brewing in his eyes. Word had reached him that someone had dared to meddle in Newman business again. Someone who thought they could outplay him. And if there was one thing Victor despised, it was amateurs in his empire. But this time, the saboteur wasn't an outsider. It wasn't even a rival corporation. The whispers led to something far more personal. Someone he'd once trusted, someone he thought was neutral. Phyllis Summers. The thought alone made him exhale a low, controlled growl. He didn't know yet what she wanted, but he knew she was involved in something that touched Newman territory, and Victor had no intention of allowing her to carry out whatever scheme she was hatching. Especially not now, when his family was already teetering on the edge of chaos. He pressed the intercom. Send Phyllis into my office. Now. Red Sloths and Newman Lions. Downstairs in the Newman lobby, Phyllis strutted in with that signature spark in her eyes. She knew Victor had summoned her. She'd practically dared him to. There was nothing she loved more than dancing with danger, and Victor Newman was the most dangerous partner in Genoa City. Mr. Newman is waiting for you, the assistant said nervously. Phyllis flashed a grin. Oh good. I hate to keep a titan waiting. She stepped into his office, closing the door behind her. Victor turned slowly, his expression unreadable, but the tension she could feel like static in the air. Phyllis, Victor said, voice low. I hear you've been busy. Phyllis's smile widened innocently. I'm always busy, Victor. Don't play games with me, he warned. Funny, she shot back with a smug tilt of her head. I was about to say the same thing to you. Victor's eyes narrowed. For a moment, they stood in silence, like two predators sizing each other up. Phyllis stepped closer, crossing her arms. If you think you can intimidate me out of this little project of mine, you're wrong. And if you think, Victor responded, leaning forward, that you can meddle in Newman affairs without consequences, you're making a very foolish mistake. That got Phyllis's attention. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to threaten her. You really want to know what I'm doing? She asked, pacing the room. Fine. I'll give you a hint. It involves a certain corporate leak, one that points not to me but to someone inside your family. Victor's jaw twitched. And let me guess, he said. You think you're going to be the hero who exposes them? Oh no, she said, turning with a sly grin. I'm going to use it. Leverage. Victor. Information is leverage. Victor's eyes glinted dangerously. That was her mistake, revealing her angle. Then I suppose, he said slowly, I will simply need to ensure you don't have access to that information anymore. Phyllis smirked. You can try. And with that she sauntered out, leaving Victor fuming and plotting.